Now, first, before we move on to this question, I want to preface this next segment by telling our listeners that you bought the vacated 1927 Edgemont home on Skyline Drive in the historic Park Hill neighborhood in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and that the style of the architecture is Spanish colonial. Let's start with the home's history. Can you tell us about it?
Well, it was built in 1927. It was Justin Matthews Jr.'s home, personal home. And they actually started my neighborhood in Park Hill, which was called Edgemont. And that's why the house was called Justin Matthews Jr., which it still is, but I call it the Edgemont house. That's just my short term for it. Because of the history of the neighborhood. And
Edgemont neighborhood was to rival Edge Hill neighborhood in Little Rock?
Well, the street in Little Rock is Edge Hill. So Edgemont was supposed to be wealthy street. So, and they were trying to bring that to North Little Rock. Of course, when they built the house, my house was the first house built in the neighborhood, one of the first houses built in the neighborhood. And, of course, soon afterwards, the Depression came and that changed everything in the neighborhood.
Did they lose their home?
They lost their home. The house has been foreclosed on several times.
How many owners has it had?
I'm the 9th owner.
Did you worry about that?
Well, some neighbors call it the white elephants because 3 people have died in the house, including the last owner. And all of them young. One was 23, one was in their 50s, the other in the 40s. So,
are you checking your pulse every day? Your blood
here's
pressure.
the funny thing. When I started working on the house, you're talking about stress. I had a major colon infection. What the doctor said, you have too much stress. And that's when I learned to reduce my stress. And I thought, oh my God, because I never get sick. It is happening. But since then, everything's been good.
Have you had anybody come in with like a priest come in?
No.
Why not?
But when I was so busy with working the house, I never thought about the deaths in the house being haunted. And people always told me the house was haunted until I almost moved in. And then it dawned on me, what if? Well, I can't afford to move now. I put too much into the house. So I had a slumber party the first night because I was not going to live in the house, sleep in the house alone the first night. And the house is very quiet. There is nothing that gives me that vibe.
That's nice. But just to get, if there is any juju, you said you took your mother over there.
I took my mom over there in the very beginning before I bought it. And she looked at me, she goes, no. And I said, well, Mom, she goes, no. And it just would ponder. I love the house I lived in before I built it. It just pondered my mind. And I knew I would move. Only I knew because a house would find me. So it wasn't for sale. It just pondered me. And I had to have it. And somehow, God's will, everything worked out the way it was supposed to be.
So you ended up moving.
I bought it in June of 2016. It took months to negotiate with the daughters. I almost backed out. And then it all worked out. And then I moved in October 2016. We did a massive renovation with my guys from Botanica after hours.
What's the first thing you did?
First thing we did, well, the outside was the worst of the house because the house has no eaves. It had no gutters for 20-something years. So the water ran down the house. So we had to rebuild the majority of the windows.
Oh.
So we started on the outside first to get it dry. And then we moved on the inside.
I was surprised you didn't keep the front doors awning.
That wasn't there. There was no front door awning.
Oh.
Now, I have pictures from the 60s.
That I saw online.
Now, if there used to be lanterns and everything in front, all that was gone. There was no light fixtures except for one broken lantern at the front door.
You used to entertain in your other house.
Yeah, all the time.
And before the show, I just tripped across a web video you did of taking people touring through your house, and you entertained there.
Yeah, I was only 2,000 square foot. It was in West Little Rock, and I did bus tours and everything. I didn't do weddings or anything like that, but I did bus tours
for people to come see your 2,000 square foot home.
Yeah, well, it was the yard. It was amazing because when you came down, you drive through my neighborhood and you think, does Chris live here? Because it's just a regular neighborhood. And then you're in a cul-de-sac and my house was hidden. All you could see was one garage door and no one knew where they're going and they didn't make sense where they were. And then when they got out and walked through the gates and into the house and the backyard, it was almost an acre. it changed everyone's mind.
What your neighbors think when busloads would pull up of people?
Well, I had great neighbors in the cul-de-sac.
I'll say.
But that's why I ended up moving, because the city of Little Rock was trying to prevent me from having tours. And the funny thing was there were Little Rock tours. but anyhow, because, it's a residential neighborhood. So when I bought the Edgemont house, that was a concern of mine and the neighbors. And we're very conscientious of the neighbors and parking. But the city of North Little Rock had a emergency legislative meeting and voted into law that anyone in North Little Rock that has a historical home with certain regulations can open it up for tours.
Did they do that because of you?
I think that was a big influence.
I'm so glad you saved this house. Tell everybody how many square feet it is.
It is, I enclosed parts of it. It's almost 8,000 square feet.
Can you imagine taking care of an 8,000 square foot home? How many bathrooms does it have?
6.
Bedrooms?
It has 4 upstairs.
The outside, when the house was built, there was no such thing as landscaping.
No, it was just a hedge against the front of the house.
If people had crepe myrtle, or had azaleas in their front yard, it was like, oh, look at the azaleas. Today,
it's pretty packed. People call it the North Little Rock Botanical Garden because, it really technically, I got every type of plant you can imagine.
So you do tours.
Yeah.
You do weddings.
We do lots of weddings.
How do people find out about it?
Word of mouth now. Of course, we advertise and stuff like that.
You got a website?
Yeah, it's the edgemonthouse.com.
The Edgemonthouse.com. I recommend go there, take his virtual tour. It'll blow you away. I can't wait to come to a party there sometime and
I will have you. And we're doing a tour in May, I think May 9th, assuming everything's okay with everything that's going on today. And that's a spring tour.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
It's on the website.
Mm-hmm. To all, thank you for spending time with us. We hope you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the picture of Kerry's face in the center of the screen. To watch the full-length interview, click the video in the top right. For more interview highlights, click the video in the bottom right. Thank you for watching.